Today I wanted to talk about value because I think it's a great place to start because I've met way too many people throughout my life, and I used to feel this way. People that say that they don't think they have much of value to offer, or they say they themselves feel worthless, or that they don't feel they have much value. So I want to hopefully prove you wrong today with some of the things that I've learned on my path when it comes to value. So what is value? Value is, it's the juice, it's what's good, it's the jelly in the donuts, it's whatever is good in a situation. So value is, in the shallowest terms, the easiest things to come to mind would be, money, happiness, love. These things are valuable to us. But why? Let's start with money. So money is valuable because we believe it is. It used to be that we would use the term value or worth maybe definitionally as an equivalency. For example, when the US dollar was backed by gold, we could say this much dollar is worth this much gold. There's an equivalency there, and that sort of brings some coherence and some cohesiveness and some meaning to all of this, where it makes it easier to understand. But these days, even the American dollar is not backed by anything. Starting there is a good spot, because if you can get it into your head that value, that money is sort of like just a token that represents value, because I think a lot of people think that you can buy happiness or love, but what you're buying with money is experiences or other things, and they're only as valuable as the context that they're in. So you can't really have value without a context. So for example, if I say I have 10 super dollars, a global currency, without the context of a city or a civilization that agreed that super dollars were worth something, then I wouldn't have anything to spend my super dollars on. Do you see? We need a relevant context with rules that make the context make sense in order for the value to make sense. Thinking about money, if I have 10 golden coins or a gold bar or a sack of cash, great, right? But what if I had 10 gold coins or a bag of cash on a desert island, and I'm starving to death, and I'm bored out of my mind, and I'm looking for company? In that situation, being social, being creative, being entertained, having food, having shelter, these things are all valuable given the context of a desert island. And with 10 golden coins, you can't do anything with that. So it's not inherently valuable. It depends upon a context, a rule, people, and so on and so forth. I'll get to that. But it's not just in and of itself value. There is nothing that is just in and of itself valuable, because in one context it might be valuable, in another context it might not be. We think, what is inherently valuable is, all humans and all living things, all plants, animals, and humans, we're all hungry. And so being able to feed someone, that has inherent value to a point, because even if we were to eat and eat and eat and get, let's say we all just solved world hunger, then we'd have a new problem, which would be world boredom. Because with everyone, let's say we just had enough food and shelter, and just everyone on Earth had food and shelter, and nobody had to worry about going hungry or a place to sleep or homelessness ever again. Then what would be the problem? I think it would be boredom. Or, you can use your imagination and sort of extrapolate out, what would be the problem if we solved world hunger and homelessness? I think it would be boredom, because I've solved my own hunger individually. I'm sort of a smaller microcosm of the world, just as an individual. And if you think about it, if it happens to you, if you've had a good meal, and if you've had your needs for shelter and a car to drive, or whatever it is you need to exist in the country and in the socioeconomic situation that you're in, whatever you need to provide for yourself, then what comes next? You usually climb the ladder or the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or whatever you might use to develop yourself as a sort of metric or marking point. But you you do grow out of survival, and then once you have your survival taken care of, you want different things become valuable to you. And on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think it's all survival down at the bottom, and then going into family from there, and then to onwards and upwards towards purpose, meaning, your own path in life, etc. And so, but I'll talk more in how that kind of ties into this in a second. But going back to contexts are situations that humans create, and then value is what's good inside of that situation. So a context that humans have created, for example, would be basketball. What is basketball? It is a game between two teams where we're just running up and down a court, a set format, and we're just trying to throw a ball into a hoop. And yet this context attracts millions and millions of dollars, millions of eyes, millions of ad dollars, revenue, attention. People get in fights, violence over this. If your team doesn't win, there could be a riot or a big celebration as if you won. People even, they'll identify with context. But again, more on that later. But using, basketball as a context of value. So what is valuable in the context of basketball? Speed, strength, height, accuracy, precision, teamwork. These are the things that have value within the context of basketball. But having a context isn't enough to have value. There also needs to be rules and laws that we accept are necessary for the context to exist, or else it would not be what it is. It wouldn't be basketball if you could just change the rules whenever you wanted. Then it would be Calvin ball, But we're starting to paint a cohesive picture of reality here, because in the context of basketball, there are rules. There's certain things you can and can't do. There's certain things that you must do or must not do. There's things that are allowed and things that are not allowed. And as long as the hoop is exactly this height and the ball is this size and there's this many players, then the rules and laws define the context of basketball, and all of the participants, the people, can look at that and go, all right, this is basketball. We can all agree on it, because otherwise you just have chaos and you've got Calvin ball, which, if you don't know, it was based on a comic strip, famous comic strip, and Calvin ball, just all the rules are made up. Like, he just creates a game with his stuffed tiger Hobbs, where it's just literally, it's second by second, you just change the rules to whatever you want. And that might be relevant to you if you really pick up what I'm putting down here. So now we have, with just from here up, we have ourselves a situation. Now, how do the people fit into that? People, because you could have a context with rules and laws and value, but that's very rote. It's very machine-like, and it's not usually very interesting until we add people, because people is how we relate. They add emotions, they add drama, and no longer are we putting a ball through a hoop, but now we are adding in personalities, we're adding in stories, we're adding in narratives, we're adding in conflict, we're adding in rivalries, and that's only possible when you have people. Because if it were just balls, hoops, it would just be math. It would just be, without people, it would just be numbers in a system, and it probably wouldn't be very exciting or interesting or draw in the millions of dollars that it does. Now, let's bring it all back to the beginning. Now that I've sort of explained how value even exists, and so I've sort of defined how it even exists within what is a situation or a context, which we're in a situation or a context constantly, by the way. We can't escape context. I'm in a context now, and so are you. I'm in the context of making a video. You're in the context of watching a video, for starters, but it goes bigger, and you could look at it a million ways from there. But why do we find ourselves in context, and why do we create them? Why did we create the context of basketball, the game of basketball, of putting things into hoops? Is it because it's fun to put the ball in the hoop? Yes, it is fun, but it's for all those other things I mentioned too. It's a stage in which to play out the experiences that we have between and amongst each other. And what's better than that? Because ultimately that's all we're doing is competing to be the best at something that was created, something that was invented. And even if it's just putting a ball in a hoop, look how we revere someone like Michael Jordan. Like, he's remembered as a legend and as a inspiring, motivational, hero for so many people. You think of the best, you think of Michael Jordan. And really, what was he doing if not running up and down a basketball court, wooden court, putting a ball through a hoop? And yet we've attached all of this reason and meaning to it. But again, more on that later. Okay, so now that we understand Why does that context exist though? Because it is fun. Because what else would we do? Just think about that for a second, let that sink in. In the context of hunger, that's one that we have to address. But in the context of basketball, why do we spend so much money on it? Why do the players put their blood, sweat, and tears into it? Why do, the athletes, the organizations, there's hundreds of thousands of jobs all around the sustaining and continuing of the context of basketball. So it's a very powerful idea, it's a very powerful context. That's all well and good. But what if you are a participant in the context? What if you're a player in the game of basketball? And what if you're not very tall? And what if you're not very fast? And what if you're not very strong? That would be concerning to you, because what can you do if you don't have what's valuable within the context that you find yourself in? And you're being bound by the rules of that context. You can't Calvin ball it and break the rules and change it up and say, well, I'm short, but I want to be great at basketball. There's examples where you can get around that by figuring out your own way to bring value to the context that you're in. So just using height as an example again, are there short guys in the NBA that have been superstar legends? Yes, absolutely. Even though I'm using basketball as a context here as an example, I don't actually know it that well. And there are legendary players that have found a way to bring value to the context that they're in, even if it's basketball, even without changing the context, without going to find their own context, where if you've been paying attention, you've probably figured out by now, that's an option, is if you're a person that's stuck in a context that you don't like, have you ever thought about leaving that context? Why are you constantly participating in a context that doesn't do anything for you? If you're that short guy who can't bring a lot of value, how does that make you feel? What if basketball is your only thing that you think you're good at that time? What if it's your only way to feed your hunger and to provide for your family? What if it's the only thing you've ever done and you don't know how to do something else? That's where you need to realize who determines the value. Sort of the evolution of the game itself, but also humans did. Where did the rules and the laws come from? Who created the context? People did. Other people could change the rules, but we adhere to the rules because we respect the context. But ultimately, it's people who determined the value. Now, with all of that in mind, the question is, are you valuable in the context of the situation that you're in? Maybe it's not basketball, but maybe it's your job, or maybe it's your family, or maybe it's what you are trying to achieve or something that you're trying to do. Because we are choosing to do things that we want to do. Let's say that you're in that situation and you're a short guy in basketball sort of situation, but instead of basketball, it's your life. And let's say that you really don't think you're very valuable in the situation that you're in. Is there a way for you to bring value to the total situation that you find yourself in? I think there is. I think you can analyze and identify through the situation what is valuable about me and how can I bring that to the situation. Because here's the thing is, contexts have umbrella context. So if you're the smartest kid in the class, that's great. That might make you very high status. That might make you very high on the totem pole of value because you're the smartest kid in the class, or you're a big fish in a small pond, in whatever example you want to use. But out of the classroom, is there a context bigger than the classroom? Is not a school just one context of the larger world, where there's probably lots of people in the larger world that would look at a school student and go, I don't care, it's sort of like when you're in 5th grade and then you think you're the top of the world, and then you graduate to 6th grade if you're in the American school system, and going from 5th grade to 6th grade, you get reset, and then you have a few, and then you're back at the bottom again, and then you go a few years, and then you get into high school, and then you reset, and then you're back at the bottom again, and you get into college, and then you reset, and then you get into the workforce, and then you reset, and you're no longer at the top, and you're always working your way up from a new relative low point. There is a larger context for life itself. And can you be valuable in that context? Yes. Because who determines value? You do. You determine the value. Now, whether it be basketball or big fish in a small pond, all of those contexts, they exist in the larger context of what we call just existing here in reality. Hello, and welcome back. I got interrupted, and then the lighting changed, so thought I'd fix it by bringing the candle in, take the opportunity to make a tea. Cheers. Just get things a little more cozy in here to bring us home. The whole point is that you determine the value because you, as a human being, like the humans that created the context of basketball or created any context that you can imagine, the context of marriage, the context of the family, the context of the workplace, whatever your work is, that too is a context. And if you're good or bad or ugly at your job or anything in between, it's just a context that you're choosing to participate in. And it's a context that maybe if you're not choosing to participate in, that you have to participate in because you think you have to. Maybe reconsider, maybe think that maybe I don't have to play stupid games and keep winning stupid prizes. If it is people, and you're people, that determine the value, why can't you determine what's valuable in your life? Maybe you can. I know I felt a lot happier when I started to decide, well, what is and isn't valuable to me? What is and isn't valuable about myself? And who decides? These questions have brought me a lot of peace. And I think if you understand, as I do, what I'm trying to communicate here, hopefully I've shared it and tried to dive into this idea in a way that has helped you or has made sense to you. Because it's really the most liberating and freeing thought is when you truly realize that you are the one that determines the value, and that means you get to determine your value. You get to determine the value of the context that you find yourself in, what rules and laws you decide are valuable and that you want to play by, and which ones you respect, which people are valuable to you, what reasons are valuable to you, how you're going to do things. It really makes you the arbiter of your own, the god of your own life. You truly are the master when you realize the master of your own fate, the master of your own ability to choose what you want to do at any given time in your life. That's what I mean by freedom and liberty. That's what I mean by a greater degree of just insight and control over, oh, I don't have to play by other people's rules and laws. I don't have to participate in the contexts that are of no interest to me, or that are of no value to me. And so that's what I'm trying to get you to do is think about in your life. Maybe you aren't the tallest person, maybe you're not the fastest or the strongest or the most beautiful or the best at whatever your chosen job context or whatever context you're in. But it doesn't matter because you get to decide, you get to choose what value is. And when you truly realize that and integrate it into how you're being every day, then you start to realize that anything can bring you happiness or love or value because you're constantly joining contexts that make sense to you, that you want to join. You're obeying rules and laws within those contexts, and you're surrounded by other people that are also doing that. And that's how you get a hobby, that's how you get a community, that's how you get a religion, that's how you get an organization, is it starts with people coming up with context that they want to create and then setting rules and laws for that context. It just makes you think, if we can do this with a game like basketball or any job or vocation on earth, then can't we also do this with ourselves? And I found that we can, and that is true. That you set the value of both yourself, everything you do, and everything that you believe to be valuable or feel is valuable. You get to decide. You assign the meaning. You assign the value. And that's one of the greatest epiphanies I've ever had, and I hope it helps you. So, all right. Until next time. I hope that was valuable to you. Again, you get to decide. So if it was, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to grow my channel. I've never done this before, and I'm trying to figure it all out as I go. I hope it was fun and interesting for you, and yeah, that's it. Peace.